Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's topic is certainly divisive and there is no right and no wrong answer to it, but it's something I love to talk about, and to be honest with you, I still haven't made my mind up. The topic is, who started heavy metal? Now, there's a caveat to the title of this, as in it's not who started metal, it's who started metal as we know it now. So Elvis Presley, obviously on the lineage of the 50s, the 60s, 70s, and now is on that lineage. He's on that journey of what became heavy music. If you were, I imagine if you were 15 years at the time when Presley came out, it would have been like, wow, this is heavy, this is really heavy sort of form of rock, you know. But it's, for me, the question is who started metal as we know it. So as we can hear it now, we put on an album and we go as far back as we can, and it still becomes a sound that we associate now with metal, heavy metal, or the metal genre in general. So, in my opinion, it comes down to two things. It comes down to the sound. That is probably the most important thing. We like down-tuned guitars in metal, we like fast riffs, and we like that heavily distorted sound. That's probably number one on the scale. Number two, which is why I have two albums for this debate on my part, is speed is also a large part of metal for me personally, and I identify metal bands almost by their speed as well as their sound. So when bands combine the two, sort of a la Judas Priest or Iron Maiden, you know that's it. But because of the sound elements of what they're talking about, again, becomes a large part of that metal genre. But when it all molds together with speed, sound, lyrics, even how the band carry themselves, album covers, all the artwork that goes into it, all becomes a whole thing into the metal genre. So the point of this video is I'm going to give you my thoughts, and then we're going to do a part two, which is where I want you to discuss after this video who you think started metal and probably why I'm wrong. But hey, you might agree with me. So for me, metal started in the very, very, very end of the 60s and 1970. To me, it comes into two camps. It's either this band or this band. So, band number one is, I was going to say it, this generally is the one that everyone thinks of. The very, very first track, so I've got the track listing here, just to remind myself. Black Sabbath's debut and the song Black Sabbath. It is about as doom-laden a metal sound as you can have. I don't know if that's really a term, but when I think of Black Sabbath, I think of almost like a doom-laden, down-tuned, heavy riff with some weird-ass vocals, a great bass line, and Ward, who I think really needs to be held up in the same breath as Bonham, because he really was that good and has, again, a very specific sound that we associate mainly with metal. Now, on this album, we've got NIB, Wizard, Sleeping Village, Evil Woman, Warning. For me, Black Sabbath and NIB are the two tracks that I'm going to take, and I'm going to say, off this album, this is what started metal for this band. Whether you think they were the first band or whether you think it's specifically this album is, again, what we're going to debate about. My wild card in the race for who started metal is that's probably not the best way to describe it, because I'm just thinking about it in my head because I'm trying to spitball this. Comes from a different view of Black Sabbath. Whereas Black Sabbath's sound is very heavy and doom-laden, this band's sound and this album is all about speed, ferocity, screaming vocals, as well as frantic guitar solos. And it would be, I was going to say it because I'm a massive fan of the band. But for me, In Rock starts off with Speed King. Now, the other part of metal that I associate as a huge part is the speed element. Now, this to me is where the debate comes between these two albums, both 1970. A lot of the material was written for 1970, were actually written in 69 for both of the bands. So, or certainly they were in development, shall we say. So I'm going to have these two albums as what I think starts metal as we know it now. So I'm going to take a song like Black Sabbath, and I'm going to take a song like Speaking, and they're completely different, but they have two completely different elements of metal. Black Sabbath has the element of downtuned guitars, very doom-laden sound, very, very metal sound, but very slow. Speaking is frantic, fast, Gillan screaming at the top of his lungs, Richie Blackmore shredding the crap out of his Strat, and Ian Pace going at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And I don't think there's another track that was like that in and around at the time. Going to the rest of the album, we've got Into the Fire, extremely heavy. Bloodsucker, who I would put up there with Speaking as an originator metal track. There's a few other songs on there like Child in Time's not really a metal track. I mean, it does, it's parts of it. Live and Wreck, Flight of the Rat. So here's my question to you: who do you think started metal? Do you think I'm miles out with it being these two? Again, this is not where it originated from, it's as we know it now. So if we sat down now and we listen to a track, we can then say this is metal. For me, if I listen to Bloodsucker or Speed King, I think metal. If I listen to MIB or Black Sabbath, I think metal. Which one does it for you more? Is there something I'm missing? Is there something else in the 70s or the 60s or 69 that still sounds like metal now? I know Uriah Heep, and there's a few other bands. I know the Kinks were heavy to a degree, but again, I wouldn't listen back now to You Really Got Me, and think that sounds like metal. I would think that was like a precursor to it coming up, slightly heavier sound, slashing the amps, coming up with different ways of creating a thicker sound. So for me, it's this band and this band with these two albums. So let me know what you think. I'm going to leave this video for a couple of weeks, see if we can get some comments on it, see if we can get some things going, and then I'll come back and maybe I might change my mind. For me, again, it is between these two albums. If I had to pick one, I actually couldn't, because I think they're just two completely different elements of metal. If you merge them together, it would be complete metal. I'm just saying that one sounds extremely heavy and one is extremely fast, as well as having elements that we know now are metal: the virtuosity of the guitar player, the speed of the drums, and the scream of the vocals. Love them both, hold them in massive high regard. Let me know what you think. Will I get into a bit of a debate about it? No one can be right, no one can be wrong on this one, because it's subjective, which is always a bit divisive when you can't actually prove something. But hey, have a chat about it. I'll catch you in a couple of weeks with this one. We'll get back to it. Let me know what you think, and I'll catch you soon.